moments. For those that can stand, please stand for a 1 minute silence to pay tribute to Her late Majesty the Queen.
This wasn't just a moment to remember the Queen. This was a moment to test party unity and discipline. There were fears the silence might be broken by booing. Instead, stillness. Labour members have descended on Liverpool for their annual conference. The backdrop to it, though, wasn't set by the party, but by the government on Friday with their tax-busting growth plan.
If you were in office, would you reintroduce the top rate of tax, the 45p rate that the government scrapped? Would you put it back up?
Yes.
What about...
I do not think that the choice to have tax cuts for those that are earning hundreds of thousands of pounds is the right choice when our economy is struggling the way it is, working people are struggling in the way they are, and our public services are on their knees.
The Chancellor said today, though, he was to see yet more tax cuts in the year ahead.
The mission is make the rich richer and somehow the money trickles down.
Although talking to party members the night before, he expressed it in somewhat fruitier language.
It's not trickle down, it's a piss take.
Labour conference started today for the first time ever with God Save the King.
God save our gracious King.
The party now in a different world from recent conferences where this was the anthem. And messaging was a little less disciplined.
Conference hasn't even started yet. You're already at war with one another.
That's your story, Labour at war.
The mood this year is a party on the march.
What's going on? Everything is very well behaved at the moment. We're not used to this at Labour Party conference.
We're a very united, well behaved, together party.
Government in waiting?
I hope so, but we'll see. Yeah, that's what we're trying to show.
I think what's going on is that this is a party that is serious about winning again. 2 years ago, we came to conference saying we had a mountain to climb. We'd lost our entire Labour base in every nation and region of the UK. We've fixed those problems. We've sorted the party out. We've shown people that we're fit and ready to govern. Now we've got to show people that we've got a plan to deliver for Britain. And that's what this week is about.
I think two things. One, what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng did earlier this week showed the Labour Party how important it is that we are united. We are up against one of the most destructive governments I think we've ever witnessed. We didn't think it could get worse than Boris, and it is. So I think, you know, we are a grown-up party.
Corporate sponsors and exhibitors have flocked to this conference, Labour making more money than at any time since 2007. This is a party, they say, that believes it is a government in waiting. Big business thinks they might be too.
Well, the head of the RMT union, Mick Lynch, has warned the railway industry is in crisis and that strike action across the rail network will go ahead as planned in the next 2 weeks if a deal can't be reached. Though he said a meeting with the Transport Secretary was very pleasant. I spoke to Mick Lynch a little while ago and began by asking him what he wants from Sir Keir Starmer to help the country.
What I want him to do is identify completely and empathise with the problems that working people have got and not triangulate off opinion polls off the Daily Mail and the Telegraph and worry about what this mythical Middle England wants. Working people and even middle class people are now struggling in this country to pay their bills. If he shows us that he's on our side, everybody can get behind him enthusiastically, and then he'll have the chance to deliver his programme as Prime Minister.
He said he'll reintroduce the top rate of tax, so what more do you want him to do to sort of like sock the wealthy?
Well, we need progressive taxation. Progressive taxation is the most democratic and progressive form of redistribution we'll get.
If interest rates start to climb really rapidly and people can't pay their mortgages, do you expect people to take to the streets to protest?
I think people need to be on the streets. We need to protest about everything that's going on. The country's being run on behalf of the wealthy. It's not being run on behalf of the people. What we've seen in Scotland in the last few weeks is rent controls and non-eviction clauses being put down by the Scottish Government. I think Keir Starmer could go for something like that. This government is...
Do you think he ever will?
Well, I don't know. That's up to him. This government that we've got now is being completely callous and cynical and ruthless. Our barristers are on strike. Our teachers will be on strike. I've just been talking to the Royal College of Nursing. which isn't involved in the Labour Party, is not affiliated to the TUC, and the BMA, the doctors' organisations, are going to be having national ballots. So we need a linked up, united working class movement that's going to challenge the basis of on which this society is being run. And we've got to get to a position where the society is run on behalf of the people and wealth is properly distributed on a fair basis.
What did you think when you saw delegates here singing God Save the King?
I didn't see it. I'm not just being,
OK, well, you can watch it on the telly, but what do you think about the idea?
Well, that's up to the Labour Party. I don't think they've ever sung the national anthem at this conference. We don't have it at the RMT conference. We don't sing anything. I don't know why that has come up this week.
Well, why do you think he did it? You talked about Middle England earlier.
Because we're surrounded by Union Jacks. That seems to be the way that he thinks he's going to win Middle England, I think. I don't mind whether they do that or not. It's up to people whether they want to sing that anthem or not. It's not my thing. I'm not a monarchist. But I recognise that there are millions of people in this country that value the monarchy, that value the late Queen, and if they want to get on with that, that's fine. It's not me to dictate it. We'll move on now. That's happened. We'll move on to doing some serious policy, I hope.
Mick Lynch, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, with one eye on the next election, Labour Party Chair Annalise Dodds has said Labour can unite the country, and she joins me now. Annalise Dodds, you heard Mick Lynch there saying that you're trying to wrap yourselves in the Union Jack to appeal to Middle England. Is that, in fact, exactly what you are trying to do, to tell people it's safe to vote Labour now after the Corbyn years?
No, actually, what Labour is doing is setting out that plan for the economic growth that we desperately need in our country, for better living standards for people. Huge contrast, obviously, at the moment with the Conservatives and their approach only helping those at the very, very top. Labour's approach is very, very different. We've been setting out many of those policies today, for example, around energy. So that's where the contrast is right now.
Well, there's a bit of policy making on the hoof as well, because the leader said that he agrees with the Conservative cut to the basic rate of income tax. So how would you fund that? How would you pay for that?
It's not on the hoof at all. Labour's been very, very clear that we would spend wisely and tax fairly. Actually, Rachel Reeves, our Shadow Chancellor, set that out last year, our fiscal rules.
How do you fund that promise
clear
today?
About, well, we will fund all of our promises, particularly for that day-to-day spending in a very, very different way to how the Conservatives are behaving at the moment.
How are you going to fund that promise made today in a TV studio?
So we will be setting out our tax plans in a huge amount of detail before the next general election.
Your leader has just gone out and made a promise on live TV, and you don't know how that's going to be paid for.
Well, no, Cathy, that's not true. What I said instead was something very, very different. I said we'll set out our tax plans in detail before the next general election, and what we will not be doing is what the Conservatives are doing, letting those at the very, very top actually have more money while everybody else is in a more difficult situation.
And we wouldn't be borrowing. Oh, you wouldn't be borrowing.
We would not be borrowing to fund consumption like the Conservatives are right now, when we had an alternative. We both know the Conservatives had an alternative right now for getting those energy bills down. They could have used profits from the oil and gas companies. They chose not to. They chose to borrow instead. Rachel Reeves and Labour would not be doing that.
No, I know that you'll use the windfall tax to fund your energy plans, but I'm asking about how you would fund that tax cut to the basic rate. The Tories would fund it by increasing borrowing. You don't agree with that approach?
Well, we have a set of fiscal rules that Rachel set out at the last conference. We will stick with those rules. We will announce our whole package of tax changes before the next general election.
Right, but you have made an unfunded pledge, haven't you?
No, that's not true, Cathy, because we will be setting out all of those policies before the next election. And you know, when it comes to tax, we've got different priorities. We don't think it's right, for example, that non-DOMs are still able to be paying less tax in our country. We don't think it's right. Also, for example, there's a VAT exemption for private schools. We've got different priorities. That means that we'll be setting out those different priorities before the next general election.
But you've made this pledge about the basic rate of tax. You don't want to fund it by borrowing, which is how the Conservatives are funding it. But you can't tell me, as things stand, how you will pay for that.
Cathy, we've been clear that with all of our policies, we'll be setting out exactly how we will pay for them before the next general election. Why am I saying that? Well, there's an important point here, which is that our economy right now, particularly after last week, is in a very, very difficult situation. We don't know how much harder it's going to get for UK governments, for example, to borrow because of the reckless approach that these Conservatives have been taking. We all saw what happened with the markets last week. Now, I'm not going to, on the hoof, be saying to you that we have set out right at this stage exactly how we'll pay for everything, because we don't know what economic circumstances we'll be in. But we've got the long-term plan, the Conservatives don't.
Annalise Dodds, thanks very much.